Pancho Segura is a former leading tennis player of the 1940s and 1950s, both as an amateur and as a professional. In 1950 and 1952, as a professional, he was the world co-no. 1 player. He was born in Guayaquil, Ecuador, but moved to the United States in the late 1930s and is a citizen of both countries. He is the only player to have won the U.S. Pro title on 3 different surfaces. Early life and career: Pancho was the firstborn of 7 children of Domingo Segura Paredes and Francisca Cano. He almost died at his premature birth, then suffered from hernias and malaria. No more than 5'6" inches tall, he had badly bowed legs from the rickets that he also had as a child. In spite of this, he had extremely fast footwork and a devastating two-handed forehand that his frequent adversary and tennis promoter Jack Kramer once called the greatest single shot ever produced in tennis. By the time he was 17, Segura had won a number of titles in Latin America and was offered a tennis scholarship by Gardner Malloy, tennis coach, at the University of Miami. He won the National Collegiate Singles Championship for 3 straight years, in 1943, 1944, and 1945. He was also the number 3 ranked American player during those years. He won the U.S. Indoors in 1946 and U.S. Clay Courts in 1944 but was never able to win the United States Championships at Forest Hills, New York, although he reached the semifinals a number of times. Kramer writes that he lost without distinction the 2 times he played Wimbledon, and really, nobody took Segoo seriously. He didn't speak English well, he had a freak shot, and on the grass while scooting around in his long white pants with his bow legs, he looked like a little butterball. A dirty butterball, his pants were always grass-stained. Professional career: long before open tennis, Segura turned professional in 1947 and was an immediate crowd pleaser with his winning smile, infectiously humorous manner, an unorthodox but deadly game. According to Bobby Riggs, Jack Harris attempted to sign Ted Schroeder to play the preliminary matches of the tour. Ultimately he failed and instead signed Segura to play the latest Australian amateur champion, Denny Pales. Instead of a percentage of the gross receipts, as Riggs and Kramer were contracted for, Segura and Pales were each paid $300 a week. Although he was overshadowed as a player by Kramer and Pancho Gonzalez in his professional career, Segura won many matches against the greatest players in the world and was particularly brilliant in the annual United States Pro Championship. He won the title 3 years in a row from 1950 through 1952, beating Gonzalez twice. He also lost in the finals 4 times, losing to Gonzalez 3 times and once to Butch Buchholz in 1962 when he was 41 years old. In the 1950-1951 professional tour in which Segura played the headline match against Kramer, he was beaten 58 matches to 27, a noticeably better performance, however, than Gonzalez's record of 27 victories and 96 defeats against Kramer the year before. In the following tour, that of 1952-1953, Segura was reduced to playing the preliminary match, where he beat the Australian Ken McGregor 71 matches to 25. For the calendar year of 1952, when Kramer, Budge, and Gonzalez all played sporadically, Segura was ranked as the world number 1 player by the Professional Lawn Tennis Association, with Gonzalez at number 2. Segura, Kramer writes, was the one pro who brought people back. The fans would come out to see the new challenger face the old champion, but they would leave talking about the bandy-legged little Sam on Ivor Beach who gave them such pleasure playing the first match and the doubles. The next time the tour came to town, the fans would come back to see Segoo. For this, according to Kramer, Segura made more than $50,000 in each of 6 or 7 years during the 1950s, a time in which there were very few baseball, football or basketball players making $50,000. Career assessment: Segura, says Kramer, probably played more matches against top players than anyone in history. Besides my couple hundred, he must have played Gonzalez 150, and Budge, Sedgman, Riggs, Hode and Rosewall all around 50 apiece. I beat him about 80% of the time, and Gonzalez also held an edge over him. He was close with Budge. Pales beat him 41-31 on the Kramer-Riggs tour, but that was when Segoo was still learning how to play fast surfaces. With everybody else, he had the edge over Sedgman, Rosewall, Hode, Trabert, McGregor. According to Kramer, possibly Budge's backhand was the best pure stroke in tennis. I accept that judgment. Now put a gun to my head, and I'd have to say that the Segura's forehand was better, because he could disguise it so well, and hit so many more angles. Kramer goes on to say, however, that with Segura, he never learned to exploit his great forehand weapon because he used it too often. He didn't know how to pace himself and pick his spots. Perhaps he was too quick for his own good. He was so fast he could run around anything and get to his forehand. He probably hit his forehand 4 times as much as his backhand. Segoo ran too far and wasted his energy in the process. At a professional event in 1951, the forehand drives of a number of players were electronically measured. Pancho Gonzalez hit the fastest, 112.88 miles per hour, followed by Jack Kramer at 107.8 and Welby Van Horn at 104. Since it was generally assumed at the time that Segura had the hardest forehand among his contemporaries, it is possible that he was not present at that event. Retirement. In 1962, on the recommendation of good friend, Mike Franks, Segura became a teaching professional at the Beverly Hills Tennis Club, replacing Carl Earn. Most of Pancho's students were movie stars such as Dinah Shore, Doris Day, Julie Andrews, Richard Conte, Shelley Winters, Charlton Heston, Barbra Streisand, Dinah Merrill, Kirk Douglas, Robert Evans, Lauren Bacall, Gene Hackman, Carl Rayner, Barbara Marx, George C. Scott, Janet Leigh, and Ava Gardner. Jean Martin was a favorite student of his. Pancho also found time to coach and teach Jimmy Connors and Stan Smith, 2 great tennis champions, as well as his son, Spencer Segura, who played at UCLA. In 1971, he left Beverly Hills to become the teaching professional at the La Costa Resort in Carlsbad, California, where he is now retired. He is widely credited with coaching, mentoring, and structuring the playing game of Jimmy Connors, starting at age 16, in 1968, when his mother, Gloria, brought him to Pancho in California. Dr. Abraham Verghese describes taking a tennis lesson from Segura during this period in his book The Tennis Partner. Before the famous Battle of the Sexes tennis match between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs in 1973, Segura openly supported Riggs. When King won the match, Segura declared disgustedly that Riggs was only the 3rd best senior player, behind himself and Gardner Malloy. He challenged King to another match. King refused. Segura retired from playing tennis after the 1970 U.S. Open at Forest Hills. However, he played his last doubles match as late as the 1975 U.S. Open, at the age of 54. Segura was inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame in Newport, Rhode Island, in 1984. Pro Slam Finals. == References. Sources: The Game, My 40 Years in Tennis, Jack Kramer with Frank Deford, Man with a Racket by Pancho Gonzalez, As Told to C. Rice, Mental Tennis by Vic Braden, Jimmy Connors, King of the Courts, by Francine Sabin, Jimmy Connors Saved My Life, by Joel Drucker, As It Was, by Gardner Malloy. External links. Pancho Segura at the International Tennis Hall of Fame, Pancho Segura at the Association of Tennis Professionals, Pancho Segura at the International Tennis Federation.